There was a time when the skies over Europe were not filled with constant aircraft noise, digital flight boards, or millions of travelers moving freely between countries, but instead were silent reminders of a continent recovering from war, loss, and uncertainty. And in that fragile moment of history, when borders felt heavier than ever, and trust between nations had to be rebuilt from the ground up, aviation became more than transportation. It became a symbol of recovery and unity. And at the heart of that transformation stood an airline whose name may no longer appear on aircraft tails, but whose impact still defines European air travel today, because British European Airways was not created for glamour or global dominance. It was created to reconnect Europe, to turn former battle routes into airways of peace, commerce, and cooperation, and to understand how modern European aviation works, how British Airways became what it is today, and how post-war air travel evolved from a luxury into a daily necessity. We must return to the story of British European Airways, an airline that quietly shaped the future of short-haul aviation and left a legacy far greater than its name. British European Airways, widely known as BEA, was officially established on the 1 of August 1946, at a time when Europe was emerging from the devastation of the Second World War with destroyed infrastructure, weakened economies, and deeply fractured international relationships, and the British government, recognizing the strategic importance of aviation in rebuilding influence, trade, and diplomacy, decided to nationalize civil aviation and divide responsibilities between two state-owned airlines, assigning British Overseas Airways Corporation, or BOAC, to operate long-haul routes beyond Europe, while British European Airways was entrusted with the enormous responsibility of rebuilding air services across the United Kingdom, continental Europe, and nearby regions. And from the very beginning, BEA's mission went far beyond commercial success, because it was tasked with restoring confidence in flying, reconnecting capital cities, and supporting economic recovery in a region where railways and roads were still damaged or unreliable. And early BA operations were based at London Northolt, before transitioning to Heathrow, which itself was still developing into a major international airport. And in its earliest years, BEA operated aircraft such as the Douglas DC-3, Dakota, and the Vickers, Viking, rugged and dependable propeller-driven aircraft well suited to short-haul routes and challenging post-war conditions. And these aircraft allowed BE to reopen vital routes linking London to Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Zurich, Rome, and many other European cities, gradually restoring regular international travel at a time when even crossing borders was politically sensitive. And BE played a critical role in changing public perception of flying by emphasizing safety, reliability, and professional service, making air travel feel structured and trustworthy rather than experimental. And as passenger demand slowly increased during the late 1940s and early 1950s, BE expanded both its route network and operational capabilities, positioning itself as the dominant European airline of its era. And one of BSA's defining characteristics was its close relationship with the British aviation industry, as the airline strongly supported domestically manufactured aircraft in order to strengthen national technological independence. And this partnership produced one of the most important milestones in aviation history: the introduction of the Vickers Viscount in 1953, the world's first turboprop airliner, which revolutionized short-haul aviation by offering smoother flights, quieter cabins, higher cruising speeds, and greater passenger comfort compared to piston-engine aircraft. And the Viscount became a massive success for BE, dramatically improving efficiency and making air travel more appealing to business travelers and the general public, reinforcing BEA's reputation as a forward-thinking airline willing to adopt new technology before its competitors. And throughout the 1950s, BE expanded aggressively across Europe, creating a dense route network that effectively turned London into a central European hub. And in doing so, BE pioneered structured connection scheduling, allowing passengers to transfer efficiently between flights, a concept that later became a fundamental principle of global airline operations. And during this period, BE also became a training ground for aviation professionals, producing pilots, engineers, and managers who would go on to shape airlines around the world. And as the jet age approached in the late 1950s and early 1960s, pressure mounted for BA to modernize once again, leading to the introduction of the Hawker Siddeley Trident, a technologically advanced short-haul jet designed specifically to meet BEAS operational requirements, featuring innovations such as automatic landing systems that were far ahead of their time. And, while the Trident represented British engineering excellence, it also revealed the challenges of political influence in aircraft design, as its limited size and range eventually placed BA at a competitive disadvantage compared to airlines operating larger and more flexible jets like the Boeing 7. And despite these limitations, BA continued to serve millions of passengers annually, playing a crucial role in making air travel a normal part of European life, supporting tourism, business growth, and cultural exchange during a period of rapid economic expansion. And yet, behind the scenes, structural challenges grew increasingly difficult to ignore, as operating as a government-owned airline meant BA often faced political interference, financial constraints, and strategic limitations. And the separation between BA and BOAC began to appear inefficient in an industry that was becoming increasingly global and competitive. And by the late 1960s and early 1970s, rising costs, intensified competition from other European flag carriers, and changing economic realities forced the British government to reconsider its aviation strategy, leading to the historic decision to merge British European Airways with BOAC. And in 1974, after nearly 3 decades of shaping European aviation, British European Airways officially ceased to exist as an independent airline, becoming part of the newly formed British Airways, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another, because British Airways inherited BEA's European route network, operational philosophy, and short-haul expertise, ensuring that BEA's influence would continue long after its name disappeared from the skies. Today, when we look at European aviation with its dense networks, frequent flights, and seamless international connections, it is easy to forget that this system had to be built from nothing. And British European Airways was one of the airlines that built it almost flight by flight, route by route, and passenger by passenger, proving that aviation could be reliable, safe, and essential, rather than exclusive or And although BA no longer exists as a brand, its legacy lives on in the structure of European air travel, in the foundations of British Airways, and in the idea that short-haul aviation can connect nations just as powerfully as long-haul flights connect continents. And British European Airways reminds us that some airlines do more than transport people. They help heal history, rebuild trust, and shape the future. And while its final flight landed decades ago, its impact still travels above us every day. Because true aviation legends do not disappear, they become the invisible framework that holds the skies together.